Hello and good day, everyone. Welcome to the City Manager's Report. I'm your host, Jill Fraley. Normally on these shows, we have our Pikeville City Manager, Donovan Blackburn, with us, but he could not be with us, so Paul Maynard has agreed to step in, and we're going to talk for the next few minutes about the importance of his job and keeping the city of Pikeville safe. Hey, Paul, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Thank you so much for being here. Paul is the City of Pikeville Public Safety Director and Emergency Manager for 911. You've been on the show with us before, but today we're going to delve into a little bit more about what your job is, the role that you play, and some of the services that your office offers and why we're keeping Pikeville so safe. We have a lot of different things to talk about, but first of all, as a Public Safety Director, I want to know a little bit more about that job and a little bit more about Paul Maynard.
Okay, of course, my name is Paul Maynard. I've been with the city for about 18 years. I've held several capacities with the city. I've been a police officer, I've been a dispatcher, obviously been a 911 coordinator, and now we have a position created called the Public Safety Director. And basically what that encompasses is emergency management and 911 director. We take care of the emergencies that might pop up, chemical spills, weather emergencies, that type of thing. We work hand in hand with the county emergency management, sort of a cooperation, an effort between us. If they need us, we go to them. If we need them, they come to us. And then, of course, obviously, we take care of 911, which is, I always like to say, is the heart of public safety, because it all begins there, and it's probably the most crucial part.
Certainly so. You mentioned you have a pretty extensive career in law enforcement. How do you think that's prepared you for this role, and how do you draw from those experiences?
Well, I was in the military for about 5 years as law enforcement, and I did a year on the outside as law enforcement. I've also worked in the volunteer fire departments, and I've been dispatched both military and outside. So I like to think that it gives me an edge, so to speak, because it's prepared me to what they do. Not always do you see what a policeman does, what a fireman does, what an EMT does. So I like to think it gives me a better perspective of their job. And one of our goals with the Public Safety Department, the EM and the 911, we're here in support of them. We want to make sure they do their job. So I think it's definitely an advantage having some experience in it.
Oh, I would think so. Over the course of the years, I know you've seen so many different changes that have happened in the way that you handle certain events. How has that changed the greatest way, you think?
Computers. It's amazing. When I first started with the city back in 94, 95, pretty much, you hand wrote the complaints. You had your telephone system. You're still using circuit boards. Now everything's computer based, all the way from the radio system, telephone system, the way we take complaints, the whole 9 yards. Everything is computer based.
Speaking of computers, we have a program called Computer Aided Dispatch, and have used that for some time, just like you were mentioning, but there have been some recent upgrades made. Talk a little bit about those, if you would.
Yeah, with the computer aided dispatch, it's a wonderful tool. It's a way of us documenting the calls as they come in, and we can keep up with where the policemen are, where the firemen are. We know what they're doing, and we've had it implemented since about 2004 through a grant through the Center for Rural Development, and we've used that over the years. And we've went through a couple upgrades, but we actually went through a major upgrade back in the fall, around November. We brought in a mapping system where we can pinpoint homes, pinpoint businesses, and on top of the mapping system, we have a system called Pictometry that will actually give us a view of that home, and we can get a 4-picture view of that business, that home, what have you, so we know if there's back doors, front doors, sidewalks, what have you.
Along with that, there's auto texting and manual texting. That's a pretty big part of that. How does that work?
It's really neat. Every call that comes in for service has an event tagged to it. And we've actually got this system built on certain events. Let's say a structure fire of a business. It will auto page the fire department, key personnel, so they know, hey, there's possibly a structure fire out there. And along with that, also the police, if we have let's say a robbery in progress, we may have the chief set up in there, the supervisors, so they know what's going on before it even develops. They're getting the automatic text. So
I would almost think that the response time would be even quicker. I mean, it's very fast anyway, but for them to know in advance, it's amazing how quickly they could be somewhere.
Exactly, and it makes a world of difference. Pretty much our response time is around 4 minutes, which is pretty much unheard of.
Right.
But in this town, the way it works and the way we're laid out, we can get there. And this helps tremendously because it's given them that heads up. Hey, you've got this call. They're heading that way. The dispatcher can fill in the blanks as they go.
Yeah. So you're being informed. So once you get to the scene, you're much more effective, I would think.
Absolutely. And then on the manual texting side, we can do what we call silent dispatch. May not be a call that keyed off an event. Say it's a drug complaint, and we don't want to put that out in what they call scanner land where people can hear that. We can just text it through to the individual officer and his supervisor, and they're responding without anyone knowing they're going, except for the dispatching themselves.
Would cut down on a lot of chaos, I would think, as far as getting people, not that chaos is probably the best word, but the activity, getting someplace, getting people where they need to be a lot quicker.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and it gets on the radio traffic,
Right.
especially if you have a serious scene. Just for an example, say we've got a car accident with entrapment, a lot of radio traffic back and forth, get us helicopters, do this, do that. Well, the dispatcher can go in and notify that on-scene commander of key points, helicopters in the air. They can send the text straight to that on-scene commander, and it frees up the radio just in case they have something they need to get out quick from the scene.
I want to talk a little bit more about the pictometry system that you mentioned a minute ago, showing all angles of a home. That is something that I can imagine is such a great benefit for you investigating if there's a hostage situation or if there's something going on. You know everything about that location.
Yeah, it's amazing what this program will do. We can actually measure from roof to ground. Say a fire department's got a 2-story structure, we can go in and give them an estimate of how tall that structure is. If they're doing a drug sweep, just like you said, we can go in and show them where the back door is, show them the access in driveways, if there's footpaths to it, what have you. And what's really good with pictometry and our mapping system is the cooperation we have with the county emergency management. We work together. They have our data just the same as we have theirs. So if there's ever a chance that they need us in the county, we can get there. We've got their pictometry, we've got their maps, we can direct them in. And the same for them. If they need to come to us, they've got our maps, they've got our pictometry and come to us. And without them, it would be difficult at best. Charles Maynard, their GIS, amazing on mapping, and he really brought us through and helped us get this mapping up and going.
And I know that you've heard of situations too where maybe your two governments within your county don't really see eye to eye on a lot of things, but that's not the case here because City of Pikeville and Pike County do a phenomenal job about making sure they're working together for everybody because the City of Pikeville is in Pike County.
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the things that it really amazes me. We do work so well together because we got the common goal. It's the citizens of Pike County and Pikeville. We want to serve them, keep them as safe as we can. And I know Doug Tackett, the emergency manager for the county, he would say the same thing. I mean, it's just our one goal is to keep everyone safe. And that's the reason we work so well hand in hand.
Absolutely. The 911 system we have is state of the art and is so important, obviously. I mean, our children are taught 911 is really their first phone number, seems like, because of the importance of it. I want to get into people who don't have landlines in a few moments concerning 911, but we have had a recent upgrade to our 911 system that really sets us above and beyond everybody else.
Oh, absolutely. We've been using our 911 system now since 2008, and we just went through a major upgrade. We've brought it up to a new software, a new platform. Everything is computer based. When I first started with the city, our dispatch system was huge. It was all circuits and it was this big console. Now it's shrunk down to a 22-inch screen. And
it's amazing, isn't it, when you think about the advancements in technology?
Yeah, it's incredible. And this company that we cooperated with and actually went together and purchased their system, Modular Communications, one of the unique things with them is your software is evergreen. You never pay for software updates. So anything they come out to improve our system, we get free. And we just go in and do the software update. It's so different than 10 years ago.
Wow.
And it does things that our old system wouldn't do. It gives us better coordinates when we take the 911 calls. It gives us better capabilities on radio. If we get a mutual aid call with the county, we're able to go into the system and pull up their frequency. And we can patch their frequency on top of our frequency and talk to each other. And that's a difficult thing to do, but this system has that capability and it's come in handy. We've used it several times.
911, like I said, is so important, and obviously you've gone over so many of those points, and like I said, it's pretty much the first number that we teach our children.
Absolutely. Because
of emergencies, because with the technology being the way it is and cell phones being everywhere and children being able to learn so early, they know how to use those devices. Right. But the problem, I think, that when you and I were talking before we started taping, is that a lot of people call 911 for things that aren't necessarily emergencies. I mean, it might be like the biggest emergency to us, but really a bona fide emergency, there are classifications for that. Talk about some of the things that, if you would, that people don't necessarily need to call 911 for.
Yeah, you know, one of the first things I tell a new dispatcher that comes on board, when you take a call at the police department, be it 911, be it an admin line, be it whatever, this is probably their worst day. If they're having to reach out to us, no matter what that problem is and how trivial it may sound, it's their worst day. So I always try to tell the dispatchers, you know, be as compassionate, help them as much as you can, but you also have to keep those 911 lines free.
Right.
Because obviously we do have emergencies all the time. You know, when we do children, we always tell them people emergencies. You know, if you see a house on fire, obviously that's 911, but if your dog's lost, that's not 911. And we'd like to tell people that, you know, if you need a phone number, don't necessarily call 911 for it. We'll be more than glad to assist you. Just call on a business line because we need to keep those free.
I like the way you put that, though. It is their worst day.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, regardless of what it is, a car wreck, a fire, things of that nature. If a child gets a cat stuck in a tree, that's going to be their worst day and be an emergency to them. And certainly you can assist that. But good point that you make is it's important to keep those 911 lines open for danger and emergency situations that are real emergencies. But it's also important, and I mentioned this, a lot of people don't have landlines. I know when I moved a couple of years ago, I'd contemplated not getting a landline because I have my cell phone, and a lot of people do that these days. But it's very important that if you're not going to have a landline, that you take proper precautions to make sure that you can be found at your residence. Do you see this as, is this a big problem that you all see right now?
It is a big problem. You know, not only with tourism increasing, with the university getting bigger, we get a lot of 911 calls that come in. They may not necessarily know where they're at. They may not know the 911 address, and that's one of the difficulties with a cell phone. Children sometimes are bad for that. You'll say, I live at my house, you know, but I need a little bit more description. They don't know their numbers. I always recommend highly keep a landline. Because that landline is going to have your address tied to it, it's going to have your name tied to it. You never know, you may call and not be able to speak. If you're not able to speak on a cell phone, it's going to be difficult at best to find you. And you know, in our profession, I guess you would say seconds count. And just a matter of seconds could make a difference between life and death. So I highly recommend everyone try to keep that landline phone so that way we can find you quicker.
You mentioned children not knowing their address or knowing where they live. They say, where do you live? They say, at my house. Well, obviously, you know, and that's their most honest answer. But for parents and maybe caretakers of elderly people, would you recommend them posting their addresses and location somewhere within their homes?
It is a real issue from a response standpoint. Definitely want to have it in your home. Have it near a phone. That way that child can see it. That way the elderly person can see it. Whoever's at your home can see it. But not only in your home, we need it on the outside of the home. And if Pikeville's kind of unique with the way our land is laid, houses are not necessarily right beside the road. You know, they can be laid back into a driveway, in a cul-de-sac, what have you. We really need to see those addresses out of there. Even though we have pictometry and we have mapping, 3 o'clock in the morning and it's, you know, dark, we want to get to you as quick as possible. And the quickest way for us to get there is once we give them that address, they're going to go to that location and they're going to look for that address. So we highly recommend, please post your addresses. In the past, we've had some question on it. If anybody has any questions on their address, if they don't know if they got the correct one, by all means, give me a call. Call me at the police department. We'll make sure you got that right address. And if you wanted me to come out and look, I'll come out and look and say, hey, you may want to post it here, not only on your home, but you may want to put it in your driveway. So that way we do get that quicker response and we're able to help people.
What about people who live in like apartment buildings or townhouse complexes and things of that nature? It's still important to have those numbers visible on the outside, because if I say 123 George Street, you need to know if there's 15 units there, you need to have those units clearly posted, and landlords need to know that too.
Oh yeah, and we're blessed here in the city because our landlords, I've never run across an issue when it comes to posting. You know, we do recommendations for them. If it's a 3-story building, try to do your apartments 100s on the ground floor. That way we know it's first floor, 200s on the second floor, 300s. And we've never run across, me personally, in 18 years, I've never had a landlord, and I'm not going to do it that way. They want to help too. And we went out and made recommendations. You may want to put it at the bottom of the stairwell because we got a lot of older homes
Right.
that are remodeled. You may have an apartment out back and not even aware of it as a responder. And the landlords are really good about it. Now, there is still some that needs improvement. And obviously we're here to help. So if you have a question, by all means, give me a call. We'll come out and do a site survey and just try to help you out the best we can and get it seen.
And that is the thing. People, if they do have questions, they can call you.
Oh, absolutely.
And no
Yes.
question is not important
No.
because, especially when you're dealing with public safety, it's a good that you mentioned too. You maybe have a property that has an apartment in the back, maybe not know about it. Those have to be registered.
Yes, yes. You definitely want to tell us where you're at, what you have. Once you have that landline service, it automatically puts you into the 911 system. So that's another reason we highly recommend keeping that 911. But just university, for example, you get a lot of kids traveling.
Yes.
They don't think there's a need to have that landline when there really is. I mean, it's tremendous because one, it's going to key off our mapping, it's going to key off our pictometry, it's going to get that responder there that much quicker. So, there's a lot of advantages to it.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned the university because as it is growing, we have so many students that are coming into our area that are not Pike County students. They're not familiar with Pikeville. They're not familiar with a university. We're really becoming a college town. And with that population increase, have you seen that have you had some problems with it, or has it been a pretty smooth transition?
It's actually been a real smooth transition. Most of the kids that are coming in, if they have questions, they're not bashful. They're coming and asking, and we appreciate that because that gives us an opportunity. I had, a couple questions about the outdoor warning system. What was that siren I heard? So we get those questions, and I'm really impressed that they're eager to learn about the town and learn what we do.
That is encouraging because not only from our high school standpoints, but with them coming in to make this their home for the next 4 years or even longer with the osteopathic school, it's important for them to become very responsible citizens, and that is one way that they can do that. You mentioned the outdoor warning system. This is something that you worked really, really hard on for a number of years.
A lot of years put into it.
Take us back to the beginning of that process.
Back in 1999, when I was promoted to the 911 coordinator's position at that time, the city manager at the time was Kenny Blackburn. He had came to me and asked me if I thought we could do it. There's a lot of concern with the mountains. Would they be able to hear it? How many would we have to have? And it was just not cost efficient to put in place. We worked a number of years looking for grants and looking for funding, and sometimes out of disaster comes good things. And Kentucky has a program, mitigation funding. When there's a national declared disaster, so much money is put back into that program, and then it's divvied out for mitigation purposes to mitigate a new disaster. And on a whim, I thought, it's a lot of money, but I'm going to put in for it just to see what happens. We got the
Don't know
call.
until you ask,
yeah,
right?
yeah, got the call, and they said, "Do you think you can pull it off in the hills?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I think we can. I think we can," and I think we proved that we did. We've got 8 placed around town. Loud.
What? I was a
Very
little bit
loud.
concerned, when we talk about, and I had the same concern too because our mountains, we are such a vast area. There are nooks and crannies everywhere. And I had a little bit of a concern too, just as a citizen, just thinking, how are we going to hear those things? Has it been about a year now that we've had it
Yes,
close?
this is 8 months or so.
Okay, I remember the first day that we tested those. I was at work up at the radio station on the hill, and I heard it loud and clear. I could not believe how loud it was because I knew where it was positioned. Amazing to me, and they're all strategically placed, so the coverage is perfect.
Well, there's some misconceptions with the system too, and that's one thing I would like to clear up. It's not designed to hear in your house. We get a lot of complaints that say, "You set the sirens off and I didn't hear it." It's an outdoor warning system. We highly recommend in your home, please have a weather radio.
Absolutely.
That is something that I think is one of the most important pieces of equipment that you can have in your home. A tornado gives no warning, and 3 o'clock in the morning, that radio could save your life. So by all means, I want to tell everyone, get that radio.
And where can they find weather radios?
Surprisingly, grocery stores, department stores, Radio Shacks, electronics, and they're relatively inexpensive. $16 to $30, just according to how fancy of a model you want. The main thing is if it goes off. That's the main thing.
And it works.
Oh, it's tremendous. During the tornado at West Liberty,
Yes.
I don't know how many people I spoke to that said their life was saved because of the weather radio. So highly recommend that. But back to the outdoor warning system.
Right.
It's designed for foot traffic. And like you said, we did strategically place them for foot traffic. You know, like the one at the mouth of Cloy downtown. We want to get the university, and it's a straight shot to the university. All those kids out on campus. We want to get the city park. It's very loud in the city park. We have one at Lane Hollow that gets that into town, the Lorraine Street, that area. So you're wanting to get those high traffic areas. We put one at Texas Roadhouse. It's getting the new Pikeville Commons. It's going to get the Walmart, the Lowe's, that thing. We've got one at the high school. Somebody said, well, you know, high school's not meth. You got to think, you've got football games there, you've got baseball games, you've got soccer games, you've got softball. You get into a game, you're not necessarily worried about the weather.
Right.
So once you hear that horn go off, you know, that gives you an opportunity. And
Is there one at Bob Amos?
There is one at Bob
On the hill
Amos.
there.
Yep, it's at the soccer field.
And you can see it. It's pretty visible when you go
Oh
through
yeah,
there.
these things, when they came in, I was like, whoa, they're big.
They're big.
Yeah,
They are
they're
big.
But it's such a tool for us in public safety. We've needed it for so long. We've needed it for so long because it is just incredible. Because you just don't know, tornadoes are so fast.
Well, and I think we talked about this before when you were here previously, that, you know, we have heard in the mountains that we don't get tornadoes here because we're always protected. A little over a year ago, we learned that certainly was not the case. Well, that happened in Magoffin County, in Morgan County, my goodness. Johnson County suffered extensive damage as well. None of them had those warning systems, the sirens in place. And had they had those in place, there was a lot of lost lives there that could have been prevented.
Very much so, because the one thing I want to say about the warning system, when you hear these sirens, please take cover.
Yeah.
Get inside, listen to your radios, listen to your TVs. It may not be a tornado. It may be straight line winds. It may be derecho winds. It may be hail. But you need to find out what it is so you can take the proper precautions. You know, we do test them once a month, first Thursday of the month at 1 o'clock. The way you'll know the difference between the test and a real thing, the test lasts 1 minute. The real thing will be 3 minutes. You'll get about a 5-minute leeway, and then you'll hear it again. We just want to make sure everybody understands what it's out there for. 70-mile-an-hour winds or above, derechos, hail bigger than an inch, obviously tornadoes, and then we also do it on a case-by-case basis for flash flooding, and that's the only time that we may only set one siren off. We don't do it for everyday flash flooding. I hate to use that term because there's no such thing as everyday flood, but you know, we've got prone areas.
Right.
If a prone area gets hit, usually you have warning on flash flooding. So you may not set it off, but now if it's starting to get above that prone area, say Cloy, for example, and it starts entering homes, we may set off the station 1, the sirens. So just want to make sure everybody understands what we're using them for, and that way they'll know.
But you did mention you always test them the first Thursday of every month. So if you know that, then you won't be as nervous. And if it's really pretty and sunny outside, then chances are it's okay. It's just the test. First Thursday every month at 1 o'clock. Now let me ask you this: I have heard them myself because I listened for the test. And of course, we covered it well when we first got them here. Have we used them since they've been implemented?
We were really close.
Really?
I was working with Lathan on the radio station, and we had winds enter Pike County above the threshold.
That was just recently.
Yeah, real recent. And before they got to the Pikeville area, they actually had died down. They didn't even issue the straight line wind warning. But we're blessed to have Lathan up there.
We are certainly.
He really keeps an eye on it for us, and he calls me and says, "Hey, get ready. We may be setting these things off."
I tell him myself, because I work so closely with him, that he's a weather junkie.
Right.
And you're probably kind of that way too when it comes,
too,
especially now that we have this warning system. But I'm so thankful that we have people like you, because I can understand a radar, but the way that the winds work and to be able to study the gusts and everything, it's just amazing how technology is going to help us protect all of our people, and he certainly watches that very closely.
Yeah, he's been a blessing for us. We've worked great with him.
With a public safety and emergency manager's position, you see all kinds of different things, but you want people to know that you're very accessible, just like our police force, our fire departments, any of our public officials. How can they find Paul Maynard, and if they have any questions, how can they get a hold of him?
Call me at the police station. You can use any of the business lines, 437-6236, 437-5111, or if you want to call me on my cell phone, don't mind a bit, 205-9530. I'm pretty much here 8:30 to 5 every day. Be more than glad to answer any questions anybody would have.
Certainly, and they can find out all about that information too on the city's website.
Yes.
Is it Pikeville?
cityofpikeville.com.
Okay, cityofpikeville.com. We have Visit Pikeville too, so
Yeah,
cityofpikeville.com. But if you have any questions for Paul Maynard, I know that you'll be more than happy to take those. And I invite you back anytime Donovan's gone. Please come by and see us, because we are, Donovan and I talk a lot about the advancements and things coming to our area. We are constantly upgrading our systems.
Yeah, and that's one thing I wanted to say too. The commission, the mayor, Donovan, they have been so committed to public safety. They make sure we have the tools to do our job with. And it makes our job easier, and it definitely is a safety factor for the public. And those guys' commitment really helps us do our job.
Yeah, well, I certainly thank you as a citizen standpoint for all that you do, keeping me and my family safe, and of course the citizens of Pikeville and Pike County. We cannot thank you enough for what you do in your role
I appreciate
to protect
it.
everybody. That's Paul Maynard. He is the City of Pikeville Public Safety Director and also Emergency Manager for 911. Paul, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been the City Manager's Report. We hope to see you next time. Good day.